The giant ship moved through space like a silver needle threading through black cloth. Inside the diplomatic bay of the GFS Harmony, Marine Sergeant Lisa Murphy stood at attention with her rifle held across her chest. Her boots were polished, to a mirror shine, and her uniform was pressed sharp enough to cut paper. She had been awake since 4 in the morning preparing for this moment. Today marked humanity's first meeting with the Zephyrian Empire. The aliens had agreed to talks after months of careful messages sent back and forth across the galaxy. Captain Dan Rodriguez paced behind the long metal table where the meeting would take place. His face showed the worry that came with knowing how important this day was for Earth and all her colonies. Lisa watched the main screen that showed empty space outside. Soon, the Zephyrian ships would arrive. She had read every file about them during the 3-week journey to this system. The reports painted them as tall, strong, and very proud of their military power. They ruled over 12 star systems and had never lost a war. Most other alien races in the Galaxy Federation walked carefully around them. The door at the far end of the bay opened with a soft hiss. Ambassador Kate Collins walked in wearing her best dress uniform. Behind her came 3 other diplomats from different alien worlds. There was Veltar from the blue-skinned Centauri, whose people had joined the Federation 50 years ago. Next to him stood Ambassador Crix, whose rock-like skin marked him as one of the silicon folk from the Outer Rim. The third was Dr. Yenna, a tall being with 4 eyes who represented the peaceful healer worlds. "Any word from the Zephyrian fleet?" Rodriguez asked Collins. "They'll be here in 10 minutes, she replied. "Remember, everyone stays calm no matter what they say. These people respect strength, but they also test everyone they meet. Don't let them push you into anger." Lisa had heard the same advice during the briefing 3 days ago. She knew the Zephyrians liked to see how other species reacted under pressure. It was their way of figuring out who they could control and who they needed to respect. The ship's computer spoke in its flat voice. "Incoming vessels detected. Zephyrian battlecruiser Ghost of Victory and escort ships requesting permission to dock." "Permission granted," Rodriguez said. "All hands, prepare for diplomatic contact." Lisa felt her heart beat faster but kept her face blank. She had been in combat before during the colony wars, but this felt different. Today she represented not just the Marine Corps but all of humanity. The weight of 3 billion people seemed to rest on her shoulders. The docking bay filled with the sound of metal connecting to metal as the alien ships linked up. Through the thick windows, Lisa could see the dark hull of the Zephyrian vessel. It looked more like a weapon than a ship, all sharp angles and weapon ports. Whoever designed it wanted everyone to know that war was their business. "Here they come," Collins whispered. The airlock door opened and the Zephyrians walked in like they owned the place. Lisa had seen pictures, but the real thing made her breath catch in her throat. They stood 8 feet tall with bodies covered in natural armor that looked like black metal. 4 arms hung from their wide shoulders, each one thick with muscle. Their heads sat low between their shoulders with eyes that glowed red in the ship's lights. The leader wore marks on his armor that showed his high rank. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never met anyone stronger than himself. Behind him came 12 guards in matching armor, each one carrying weapons that hummed with deadly energy. "I am War Commander Thexkar of the Zephyrian 3rd Battle Fleet," the leader said through a translator device on his chest. His real voice sounded like grinding metal. "We come to speak with the humans who claim to be worthy of Federation membership." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward and gave a small bow. "Welcome aboard the Harmony, War Commander. I am Captain Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Force. We are honored by your visit." Thexkar's red eyes swept across the human delegation and stopped on Lisa. His head tilted as if he was looking at something strange. "This small creature carries a weapon. Are your warriors so weak that you must arm your females?" The other Zephyrians made sounds that the translator turned into laughter. Lisa felt heat rise in her cheeks but kept her face still. She had dealt with men who thought women couldn't fight before. These aliens were just bigger versions of the same problem. "Sergeant Murphy is one of our finest Marines," Rodriguez said with ice in his voice. "All humans serve in our military regardless of gender." "How amusing," Thexkar said. He walked closer to Lisa, his heavy steps making the deck plates ring. "What is that primitive device you carry, small one?" Lisa looked straight ahead as she had been trained. "Standard issue M4 kinetic rifle, sir." "Kinetic?" One of the other Zephyrians spoke up. "They still use projectile weapons? How backward?" "Our intelligence reports were correct," Thexkar said to his guards. "These humans still fight with metal bullets like savages. No wonder they needed help to reach the stars." Ambassador Collins stepped forward. "Perhaps we could begin the formal negotiations now. We have prepared a meal in your honor." "Yes, let us talk," Thexkar agreed. "We are curious to hear what this weak species thinks it can offer the great powers of the galaxy." As they moved to the conference table, Lisa heard the Zephyrian guards talking among themselves. The translator picked up bits of their conversation. Words like soft and helpless and easy conquest reached her ears. She gripped her rifle tighter and reminded herself that starting a fight would ruin everything her people had worked for. But, deep in her chest, something hard and angry was starting to grow. The conference room felt cold despite the warm air flowing from the vents. Lisa stood against the wall while the diplomats sat around the long table. The Zephyrians took up one whole side with their massive frames. Their red eyes glowed in the soft light as they listened to Captain Rodriguez explain humanity's proposal for peaceful trade. War Commander Thexkar had not touched any of the food prepared for the meeting. His 4 arms rested on the table while he stared at the human captain, with what looked like boredom. The other alien diplomats sat between the two groups, trying to keep the mood friendly. "Your species wishes to establish colonies in the Outer Rim sectors," Thexkar said when Rodriguez finished speaking. "These are territories we consider part of our expansion zone. The sectors are unclaimed according to Federation law." Ambassador Collins replied. "Our surveys show no Zephyrian presence in those systems." "Law." Thexkar made the sound that meant laughter among his people. "The strong make law. The weak follow it. Which are you, humans?" Lisa watched Rodriguez's jaw tighten, but he kept his voice calm. "We prefer cooperation to conflict, War Commander. There's enough space for all of us." "Space belongs to those who can take it and hold it," one of the Zephyrian guards said from behind his leader. "Your small ships and weak weapons could not stop a single one of our battle groups." Dr. Yenna leaned forward on her 4 arms. "Perhaps we could discuss trade benefits instead of territorial claims. The humans have shown remarkable skill in manufacturing and agriculture. What could these primitives possibly make that we would want?" Thexkar stood up from his chair, his full height making everyone else look tiny. "They still use chemical rockets to leave their world. Their computers are slower than ours were 100 years ago. Their weapons shoot pieces of metal like children's toys." The insults hit Lisa like physical blows, but she kept her face blank. She had learned long ago that showing anger only made bullies worse. But inside her chest, the fire was growing hotter. Rodriguez stood as well, though he barely came up to the alien's shoulder. "Human technology may seem simple to you, but it works. Our colonies are thriving. Our people are happy. We don't need to conquer others to prove our worth." "Happy?" Thexkar's translator made his voice sound mocking. "Happiness is for children and prey animals. Warriors know only victory or death." "That's an interesting philosophy," Collins said carefully. "But the Federation was built on cooperation between different peoples with different strengths." "The Federation exists because my people allow it," Thexkar replied. He began walking around the table, his heavy steps making the deck shake. "We could crush any 3-member worlds without effort. We stay our hand only because destroying the weak provides no honor." Ambassador Crix shifted his rocky body in his chair. "War Commander, surely you don't mean to threaten Federation members during a diplomatic meeting?" "I state facts, not threats." Thexkar stopped walking when he reached Lisa's position. He towered over her like a black mountain. "Look at this creature they send to guard their leaders. No armor, no real weapon, barely tall enough to reach." "My chest. Is this the best your species can offer?" Lisa stared straight ahead at the wall across the room. Her knuckles were white where she gripped her rifle, but her voice stayed steady. "I serve at the pleasure of my commanding officer, sir." Sir? Thexkar made that grinding laugh again. It shows respect to a superior warrior. But I am not your superior, small one. I am a different species entirely. You are an insect compared to my kind. That's enough, Rodriguez said, his voice sharp. Is it? Thexkar turned back to the captain. You claim your people deserve respect as Federation members. You say you can defend your colonies and trade routes, but you send females to do warriors, work, and arm them with toys. How can we take such claims seriously? The room fell silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. Lisa could feel everyone watching her, waiting to see if she would break under the alien's words. The other Federation. Diplomats looked uncomfortable but said nothing. This was between humans and Zephyrians now. Collins tried to steer the conversation back to safer ground. Perhaps we could arrange a tour of our manufacturing facilities. You might be surprised by what human engineering can accomplish. I have a better idea, Thexkar said. His red eyes gleamed with something that looked like hunger. You claim your people are worthy warriors despite their appearance. Prove it. What do you mean? Rodriguez asked. A demonstration, combat between our forces and yours. Let us see how well your primitive weapons and female soldiers perform against real warriors. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Lisa felt her heart start beating faster but kept her breathing steady. She had been in firefights before, but never as the representative of her entire species. That's not necessary, Collins said quickly. We're here for diplomatic talks, not military exercises. Are you? Thexkar walked back to his chair but didn't sit down. Because it sounds like you're afraid to let your warriors face mine. Perhaps the stories about human courage are greatly exaggerated. We're not afraid, Rodriguez said. The words came out harder than he probably intended. Then prove it. My elite guard consists of 12 of our finest fighters. Choose your champions and let us settle this question of human worthiness once and for all. The other Federation diplomats started talking at once, their voices mixing into a confused buzz. They all said the same thing in different ways. This was a bad idea. Someone could get hurt. It would destroy the diplomatic process. But Lisa stepped forward from her position against the wall. The room went quiet again as everyone turned to look at her. She could feel the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. I'll do it, she said. The silence that followed was so complete that Lisa could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Rodriguez stared at her with wide eyes. Collins looked like someone had hit her with a hammer. Even the other Zephyrians seemed surprised. Thexkar was the first to speak. 1 human against 12 of my elite guard? 1 Marine, Lisa corrected. That's all you'll need. The war commander threw back his head and made the loudest grinding laugh yet. His guards joined in until the room filled with the sound of metal, scraping against metal. When they finally stopped, Thexkar wiped moisture from his glowing eyes. This will be over before it begins, he said. The holographic training bay hummed with energy as the computer systems prepared for the combat demonstration. Lisa stood in the equipment room, checking her rifle for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. Her hands moved automatically through the inspection, routine she had performed thousands of times before. Magazine release, chamber check, sight alignment, trigger pull test. Everything was perfect. Captain Rodriguez stood behind her with his arms crossed and worry written across his face. You don't have to do this, Murphy. We can find another way to earn their respect. No, sir, we can't, Lisa replied without looking up from her weapon. They've made up their minds about us. Words won't change that. Only action will. Ambassador Collins paced back and forth across the small room. This is insane. 12 trained alien warriors against 1 human soldier. The odds are impossible. The odds were impossible at Thermopylae too, Lisa said. She pulled a fresh magazine from her belt and checked the tungsten core rounds inside. Each bullet was smaller than her thumb, but packed enough kinetic energy to punch through steel plate. Didn't stop the Spartans from making history. The Spartans all died, Collins pointed out. But they showed the world that Persians could bleed. Lisa slammed the magazine into her rifle with a sharp click. Sometimes that's all it takes. Through the observation window, She could see the Zephyrian elite guard preparing their own equipment. Each warrior stood 7 feet tall in their battle armor, which made them look like walking tanks. Their weapons were sleek energy rifles that glowed with contained plasma. According to the tactical briefings, those rifles could cut through most known materials and had an effective range of over 1,000 meters. War Commander Thexkar walked among his troops, speaking to them in their harsh language. The translator couldn't pick up his words from this distance, but Lisa could see the confidence in their body language. They moved like predators who had never met anything they couldn't kill. The holographic environment will simulate a rocky canyon with multiple levels, Rodriguez explained. Natural cover, uneven terrain, plenty of places to hide or get trapped. The safety protocols will prevent actual death, but the pain will be real. Lisa nodded. She had trained in similar environments during her years as a Marine. Urban warfare, jungle fighting, desert combat, zero-gravity battles. This would be just another day at the office, except the whole galaxy would be watching. Dr. Yenna entered the equipment room with her 4 eyes showing deep concern. Sergeant Murphy, I must tell you what our medical scans revealed about Zephyrian physiology. Their natural armor can stop most energy weapons. Their reflexes are twice as fast as human normal. They have redundant organs that let them keep fighting, even after serious injuries. What about their weaknesses? Lisa asked. We found very few. Their armor has joints that might be vulnerable. Their eyes are sensitive to bright light, but honestly, they seem designed for warfare from birth. Lisa smiled for the first time since the meeting began. Good thing I wasn't designed for warfare. Then, I was trained for it. There's a difference. The intercom crackled to life. All participants report to the training bay. Combat demonstration begins in 5 minutes. Rodriguez put his hand on Lisa's shoulder. Remember, this isn't about winning or losing. It's about showing them we won't back down. Fight smart, stay alive, and make them work for every inch. Yes, sir. Lisa slung her rifle across her shoulder and headed for the door. But, sir, I didn't volunteer just to make a statement. I volunteered to win. The training bay had been transformed into a rugged landscape that looked like something from Earth's western deserts. Red rocks jutted up from sandy ground, while narrow passages wound between tall cliffs. The artificial sun cast sharp shadows that created perfect hiding spots and deadly traps. Lisa walked onto the simulated battlefield and felt the familiar calm that came before combat. Her breathing slowed down, and her senses sharpened. Every sound became clear. Every shadow gained meaning. This was what she had trained for her entire adult life. The Zephyrian elite guard took positions at the far end of the canyon. They formed up in a tight formation that spoke of years of fighting. Together, their plasma rifles charged up with a whining sound that echoed off the artificial rocks. War Commander Thexkar's voice boomed across the training bay through hidden speakers. Begin when ready, small warrior. Show us what humanity can do. Lisa found a position on higher ground behind a cluster of red boulders. From here she could see most of the canyon floor while staying hidden from direct view. She chambered around and flicked off the safety. The familiar weight of the rifle in her hands felt like coming home. Computer, begin combat simulation, she called out. The holographic environment came fully alive. Wind blew sand across the canyon floor. Birds called from unseen perches. The temperature rose to match a real desert afternoon. In the distance, the Zephyrian guards began their advance. Lisa watched them through her rifle scope and noted their tactics. They moved in a standard military formation with overlapping fields of fire. 2 scouts moved ahead while the main group provided cover. It was textbook assault doctrine, probably perfected through hundreds of battles against other alien species. The problem was that Lisa had never read their textbook. She let them get halfway across the open ground before taking her first shot. The tungsten core round struck the lead scout center mass and sent him tumbling backward into the sand. The training protocols registered him as a casualty, and his armor froze up to simulate death. The other Zephyrians immediately took cover and began scanning for her position. Their plasma rifles sent bright bolts of energy toward her hiding spot, but she was already moving. Rule number 1 of sniper warfare: shoot and move. Lisa scrambled down the backside of her rocky position and headed for a new vantage point 50 meters away. Behind her, the rocks where she had been hiding glowed red-hot from plasma impacts. The real fight was just beginning. The Zephyrian guard spread out across the canyon floor like a deadly wave. Lisa counted 11 warriors left after her first shot had taken down their scout. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never faced real resistance. Their plasma rifles glowed as they charged up for another volley. Lisa reached her new position behind a fallen boulder and immediately spotted her next target. The Zephyrians were making their first mistake by bunching up too close together. She aimed at the warrior on the far left and squeezed the trigger. The tungsten round hit him in the shoulder joint where his armor was thinnest. He spun around and crashed into the warrior next to him. Both aliens went down in a tangle of arms and legs. The training computer marked them as casualties. 10 left. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air above Lisa's head as the remaining guards tried to pin down her position. The energy weapons lit up the canyon with bright flashes, but they were shooting at where she had been, not where she was. Lisa rolled to her right and came up behind a different rock formation. The Zephyrians were learning, though. Their commander barked orders in their harsh language, and they began to spread out properly. 3 warriors moved to flank her position while the others provided covering fire. It was good tactics, but they were still thinking like they were fighting other aliens who stood and traded shots. Lisa had different ideas. She low-crawled through a narrow gap between 2 boulders and emerged 30 meters behind the flanking group. The 3 Zephyrians had their backs to her as they advanced on her old position. Lisa took careful aim and put a round into the first warrior's back, where his armor plates joined together. He dropped like a stone. The other 2 spun around, but Lisa was already moving again. She sprinted across open ground toward a cluster of rocks on the far side of the canyon. Plasma bolts burned the air around her, but the Zephyrians were firing, too fast to aim properly. Their weapons needed time to recharge between shots while her rifle could fire as fast as she could pull the trigger. Lisa dove behind cover, just as a plasma bolt scorched the ground where her feet had been. She rolled to her left and came up shooting. 2 quick shots caught the flanking warriors before they could find cover. The computer marked them as down. 7 left. The remaining Zephyrians regrouped in the center of the canyon. Lisa could see them through her scope, huddled behind their energy shields while their leader shouted orders. They were starting to realize that their usual tactics weren't working against a human opponent. Lisa moved to a new position on higher ground and studied their formation. The warriors had formed a tight circle with overlapping fields of fire. It was a defensive position designed to prevent anyone from getting close enough to hurt them. Against most enemies, it would work perfectly, but Lisa wasn't most enemies. She picked up a small rock and threw it to her left. It clattered against stone and immediately drew plasma fire from 3 different directions. While the Zephyrians were distracted, Lisa moved to her right and found a spot where she could see through a gap in their defensive circle. Her first shot took down the warrior facing away from her. The second caught another guard who turned to investigate the noise. 5 left. The remaining Zephyrians broke formation and charged toward her position. It was a desperate move, but probably their best option. If they could get close enough, their superior size and strength would give them the advantage. Their plasma rifles whined as they charged up for maximum power. Lisa waited until they were halfway up the slope before she started shooting. Her first round caught the lead warrior in the chest and sent him tumbling backward into his companions. The second warrior leaped over his fallen comrade, but Lisa's next shot took him in the leg and brought him down hard. 3 left, and they were getting close. Lisa slung her rifle and pulled out her sidearm. The compact pistol held 15 rounds of the same tungsten core ammunition. At close range, it would punch through Zephyrian armor just as well as her rifle. The first warrior reached her position and swung one of his forearms in a blow that would have crushed her skull. Lisa ducked under the swing and put 3 rounds into his armpit where the armor was thin. He roared in pain and surprise as the training computer shut down his systems. The second warrior tried to grab her with 2 arms while bringing his rifle up with the other 2. Lisa twisted away from his grip and shot him twice in the face mask. His red eyes went dark, as the computer registered a kill. One left. The final Zephyrian warrior stood 10 feet away with his plasma rifle aimed directly at Lisa's chest. His weapon was fully charged and ready to fire. At this range, he couldn't miss. Lisa's pistol was pointed at his head, but she knew her bullet would be slower than his energy beam. For a moment that seemed to last forever, neither of them moved. The canyon fell silent except for the artificial wind blowing across heated sand. Then Lisa smiled. "You forgot something," she said. The warrior's head tilted slightly in confusion. "What?" "I don't fight fair." Lisa dove to her left just as the plasma bolt burned through the space where she had been standing. Her movement brought her behind the body of one of the earlier casualties. The fallen Zephyrian's armor was still smoking from her previous shots, but it blocked the line of sight between her and the last warrior. She rolled around the body and came up with her pistol aimed. The last warrior was turning to track her movement, but he was too slow. Lisa put 2 rounds center mass and watched him fall backward onto the sandy ground. The training computer's voice echoed across the suddenly quiet canyon. "Combat simulation complete. All hostile forces neutralized. Victor, Sergeant Lisa Murphy, Earth Defense Force." Lisa stood up slowly and looked around at the battlefield. 12 elite Zephyrian warriors lay scattered across the canyon floor like broken toys. Not one of them had managed to land a single shot on her. She reloaded her pistol with practiced ease and holstered it. Then she picked up her rifle and slung it across her shoulder. The weapon felt warm from all the shooting, but it had performed perfectly when she needed it most. "Computer, end simulation," she called out. The desert canyon faded away and left her standing in the plain metal training bay. Through the observation windows, she could see dozens of faces staring down at her. Humans, aliens, diplomats, and warriors, all pressed against the glass with expressions of shock and amazement. But the face she focused on belonged to War Commander Thexkar. The massive alien stood motionless with his forearms hanging at his sides, and his red eyes wide with something that might have been respect. The observation deck was so quiet that Lisa could hear the ship's air recycling system humming in the walls. Every alien diplomat stared down at her through the reinforced windows, with expressions that ranged from shock to amazement. The humans looked proud but also surprised that their representative had actually won against such impossible odds. War Commander Thexkar was the first to break the silence. He walked down the stairs into the training bay with slow, heavy steps. His red eyes never left Lisa as he approached. When he reached the center of the room, he stopped and looked around at the spots where his elite warriors had fallen during the simulation. "Impossible," he said in a voice barely above a whisper. "No single warrior has ever defeated a full guard unit in combat. Not in 300 years of Zephyrian military history." Lisa ejected the spent magazine from her rifle and loaded a fresh one. The motion was automatic after years of training, but it sent a clear message. She was ready to fight again if needed. "Your warriors fought well, Commander. They just fought the wrong kind of war." "Explain." Thexkar's forearms crossed over his chest in what Lisa recognized as a gesture of attention among his people. "Your troops move like they expect their enemies to stand still and trade shots. They bunch up in formations that work against other aliens who fight the same way. But humans learned long ago that the best way to win a fight is to make sure that my other guy can't hit you back." Captain Rodriguez and Ambassador Collins came down to the training bay floor. Rodriguez's face showed relief and pride in equal measure. Collins still looked like she couldn't believe what had just happened. "Sergeant Murphy demonstrated superior tactics and marksmanship," Rodriguez said. "But more than that, she showed what human determination can accomplish when everything is on the line." Thexkar walked over to one of the spots where his warriors had fallen. The training computer had removed the holographic bodies, but scorch marks on the floor showed where plasma bolts had hit. "Your weapon fires metal projectiles at high velocity. Our intelligence report said such weapons were too primitive to be effective. Your intelligence was wrong." Lisa held up one of her tungsten core rounds. "This bullet travels at 3 times the speed of sound. It doesn't need to cut through your armor. It just needs to hit hard enough to transfer all its energy into your body. Physics doesn't care how advanced your technology is." The other Federation diplomats came down from the observation deck. Dr. Yenna approached Lisa with her 4 eyes, showing deep respect. The medical sensors recorded everything. Your projectile weapons delivered kinetic impacts equivalent to being struck by a small vehicle. No organic body can withstand that kind of force, regardless of natural armor. Ambassador Veltar from the Centauri world stepped forward. In all my years of diplomatic service, I have never seen anything like this. One warrior defeating 12 elite guards is the stuff of legends. It's the stuff of proper training and good equipment, Lisa corrected. Any Marine could have done the same thing with enough time to study the enemy and plan the attack. Thexkar made a sound that his translator couldn't interpret. When he spoke again, his voice carried a tone that hadn't been there before. We have underestimated your species, humans. This demonstration has taught us that strength comes in many forms. Does this change your position on our territorial claims? Collins asked carefully. The war commander was quiet for a long moment. Lisa could see him thinking, probably recalculating everything he thought he knew about human military capabilities. Finally, he nodded slowly. The outer rim sectors you wish to colonize are yours by right of conquest. You have proven that humanity can defend what it claims. The Zephyrian Empire will not challenge your expansion into those regions. Rodriguez stepped forward. We prefer to think of it as right of settlement rather than conquest, but we appreciate your recognition of our claim. There is more, Thexkar continued. My people value strength above all else. Sergeant Murphy has shown strength that deserves respect. I formally request that the Earth Defense Force consider establishing military exchange programs with our forces. Lisa felt her eyebrows rise in surprise. You want to learn human tactics? I want to understand how a force 1/12 the size of ours can achieve total victory through superior strategy. Your methods could revolutionize Zephyrian military doctrine. Collins and Rodriguez exchanged glances. This was far better than anything they had hoped for when the negotiations began. Not only had humanity earned respect, but they had gained a potential military ally. We would be honored to share training methods with Zephyrian forces, Rodriguez said. In return, perhaps your people could teach us about energy weapon technology and advanced armor systems. Agreed. Thexkar turned back to Lisa. You will lead the first exchange program. My warriors need to learn from someone who has proven their worth in combat. Lisa looked to Rodriguez, who nodded his permission. I accept the assignment, Commander, but I have one condition. Name it. My Marines train hard, but they also train together. Male and female, side by side. If your people want to learn from us, they'll have to accept that both genders can be warriors. Thexkar was quiet for several seconds. Lisa could see the internal struggle on his alien features. 300 years of military tradition were being challenged by the evidence of his own eyes. If your females can fight like you, he said finally, then we will learn to respect them as warriors. The strong deserve honor regardless of their form. The negotiations continued for 2 more days, but the tone had completely changed. Where before the Zephyrians had been dismissive and demanding, now they spoke to the humans as equals. Trade agreements were signed, territory disputes were settled. Cultural exchange programs were established. On the last day, Lisa stood in the docking bay watching the Zephyrian ships prepare to depart. War Commander Thexkar approached her one final time. I have a question, Warrior Murphy. During our combat, you could have used explosives or other weapons. Why did you choose to fight with only your rifle and sidearm? Lisa smiled and patted her rifle. Because this is what I know best. A weapon is only as good as the person who carries it. Doesn't matter if it shoots bullets or plasma beams. What matters is the mind behind the trigger. Thexkar nodded slowly. Wisdom. We will remember this lesson. As the alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, Lisa walked back to her quarters to write her mission report. She sat at her small desk and stared at the blank screen for several minutes before she started. Typing. Mission accomplished. Diplomatic contact with Zephyrian Empire successful. Territorial agreements reached. Military exchange programs established. Recommend continued cooperation with Zephyrian forces. She paused and then added one final line. Sometimes, the best way to make friends is to show them you don't need to be enemies. Lisa saved the report and leaned back in her chair. Outside her porthole, the stars looked the same as they always had, but she knew that humanity's place among them had changed forever. They were no longer the new species trying to prove themselves worthy of respect. They were the people who had earned it.